Hey, I'm Cameron. Welcome back to the Busy Gardener channel. In this video, we're gonna take this boring, bare corner of our yard and turn it into this layered fruiting paradise. Let's get busy. Well, we've finally gotten in all of our landscaping and hardscaping, where we've got our grass in, we've got our wood chips, we've got our rocks, we've got our blocks, we've got our walls, we've got our seating area, all of this stuff. And we're so thrilled. It's taken about 1.5 years, but we're finally here. And so now we're trying to pay attention to some of those finer details. And one of those things is this corner. This is kind of a hard corner. And you know, just a ton of wall right there. And then it's got this fence that just meets in the corner of it. And so we're wanting to soften that look. And a lot of times plants are a great option. They create a much more natural, less angular look for an area. And so we've been considering what to do here. So to achieve this soften effect and create a nice visual, we're going to be leaning on a really well-known garden design principle called layered garden or layered planting. And I'm going to talk in a moment about what that is. I'm going to share a watering hack at the end of this video that's going to enable us to water different types of plants in here. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And I'm also going to be posting updates of this area. So be sure to subscribe so that way you don't miss out on any of the updates on how this area is growing. All right, let's get to it. So why layered planting? Layering essentially means interplanting different types of plants in a specific area to create ongoing interest in that garden. So that way your eye has a few different things to look at as opposed to just a row of something. And this is often where one layer steps up into another, maybe taller layer, which steps up into another taller layer. Now, we have a lot of hills here and our whole yard has been a hill, and that's what we've been working with. So there's no shortage of elevation, but in that area behind me, which is relatively flat, we're needing to achieve that effect in a more intentional way. And this type of layering can be done in a very formal way, which is very precise, but we've also seen it done in a very informal way where the plants kind of grow together and it looks a little bit more natural. We're going to be going for a little bit more of a formal look with some more clearly defined things. There's not going to be as much bleed over, but there might be some overlap of the edges. And actually, before we get into showing you what I'm going to plant, why don't you tell me, what experience do you have with layered planting? Have you put anything and done that layered method in your garden? Put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your ideas. And we've all seen this done wrong, where you've got a bunch of tall things in front and you can't see anything behind them. We're not going for that here. The most gorgeous layered gardens are those where they start with the things that are the smallest in the front and step up to slightly larger and larger and larger, ending up directing your attention to a focal point. And that focal point can be a building or a flagpole or a tree. Which brings us to what we're doing here. In our case, the focal point is going to be this ever-bearing mulberry that I planted back here. This dwarf ever-bearing mulberry puts out a ton of berries and is really low maintenance. This plant grows really well in zones 5 through 10, so it's pretty much going to work for anybody watching this video. Okay, so we've got our focal point, this mulberry planted, and it's our 8-foot tall mulberry. Just dream with me a little bit. And because I want really everything in our yard to either be gorgeous like a flower or ideally edible, I was thinking, what other edible things can I plant below this? So I settled on 2 other things. The next step down from our mulberry tree are these baby cakes blackberries, and I'm stoked about these blackberries. These blackberries grow, they're naturally dwarfing, so they're not going to grow any taller than 3 or 4 feet. They are thornless, which is wonderful. They've got a kind of a rounded habit, and a pretty cool thing about this is that they can fruit twice a year, which is also really exciting. So excited to plant these here. Now, this blackberry says that it's good for zones 4 to 8, and the main reason for that isn't because they can't take a ton of heat, but it's mainly because they need 400 chill hours in order to reliably fruit. And so even though we're zone 9B, 10A over here, we're hoping to get away with a little bit of sun protection by this pine tree that's here. It's going to start shading it out after maybe 6 hours of sun, as well as the fact that we get 300 to 400 hours of chill hours, sometimes 250 to 400. So we're going to see. I think we're going to get fruit off of these. We've had some other high chill varieties that have done well, and so excited to plant these. I should mention that if you see one of these in your local garden center or even online, I've seen these individual plants, these baby cakes, range anywhere from $20 to $35 for a single plant. And when I saw this 2-pack at Sam's Club of these bare roots for $17, so $8.50 a plant. I had to grab them and I thought I know exactly where these can go. Okay, we're right here in the front of our planting, and this is where we're gonna have the smallest plants of this layered planting, and that is going to be strawberries. I am excited about strawberries, and there are a few reasons why I settled on strawberries. First of all, they make a beautiful edible ground cover that's gonna go right here. Another thing is that as they grow, they send out these little runners, and those runners are gonna drape over the side here. We can train them to drape over the side, so it's gonna soften some of the edge of this wall. These plants grow about 1 to 2 feet tall maximum, and so they're gonna add just another layer that's gonna drape down, and then you're gonna have those blackberry bushes behind that and the ever-bearing mulberry behind it. I like that they're super easy to propagate. You can make more of these really easily by training those runners. I'll make a future video on that. And finally, I love planting strawberries because they're tasty. The 3 strawberries that I'm settling on here are the Sequoia, the Ozark Beauty, and the Gurney's Whopper. These are all bare root, and so we're gonna be planting, each of these is a pack of 10 strawberry plants. And so that's gonna be something that's planted. Now, each of these strawberry plants are really rated for USDA zones 4 through 8. And so I'm pushing my zone a little bit here. I don't know quite how that's going to affect it. I don't know if that's because of the chill hours that they don't think it's going to work, or if that's because it's just going to get too hot and burn some of them. To alleviate some of those issues, the fact that we're planting here and that this area is going to get a little bit of shade may hopefully help some of those scalding conditions from happening. So this is going to go here. I've got 3 different kinds. I'm going to plant them in 3 different sections, so that way we'll be able to tell very easily which does the best here, and those are the ones we're going to probably propagate in future years. Or maybe they're all going to be great and we're just going to get 3 amazing kinds of strawberries. Time to get all of these in the ground. Okay, before we start doing any kind of digging, we want to make sure that we have placed our plants where we think they're going to go, so that way we're really happy with the layout before we start digging into the ground. So the fact that this mulberry is going to get kind of big, I'm going to go out maybe 4 feet from that. Maybe not even 4 feet. My feet are about 1 foot long, so maybe we'll put blackberry here. Okay, so that's our blackberries. Now, the nice thing about the strawberries is that we have 10 plants each, and so we're going to be just dividing this into thirds. And I think I'm going to use a lot of the rocks that we have over here. We've got millions of rocks. We've been trying to get rid of rocks. If you are in Southern California and you want rocks, I'm your guy. I'm sick of rocks. But at least in this case, we're going to use them. Okay, so I'm just going to do a rough outline of where I think that the thirds ought to be. Maybe we'll go something like this. And so that way we're going to have a large patch here of one. We've got kind of a patch of another, but I consider this to be, there are ants all over this. I don't want direct lines. I don't want a line of rocks going straight to a bush's, or a plant's trunk. I want it kind of a little bit softened up, not as clear lines, so it kind of meshes together a little bit. One thing I like here is that because we have this encircling the tree in kind of a quarter circle, if you're on this side, you're going to have coverage, and if you're looking from the front, you're going to have coverage. So this is going to provide a lot of just uniform look, which I'm really excited about, softening that wall in that area up. So I'm going to dig a preliminary hole here just to get an idea. And as I open these bags, I see that these are little bare root plants. I mean, they're tiny, and so you want to break the roots up so that way they don't get encircled. When this goes in the ground, you want this to go so that the crown is buried beneath the ground with just the leaves sticking above it. And as I clear space for my strawberries, I'm getting rid of all that heavy mulch. And these are all bare root strawberry plants that are bound together, usually in this case with a rubber band, or sometimes another tie. And so separating those and laying them out where I want them is going to make sure that I've got the correct spacing, which is about 12 inches apart from each other. And when you plant these in the ground, you want everything except for the very top of the crown to be sticking above the ground. Everything else should be beneath the ground. So you want to dig a pretty deep hole to make sure that this has plenty of room, that those roots are going down and they're not all just bunched up together. So you're going to dig a deeper hole than you would for a lot of other plants because you want all those little trailing roots to be there. If you find that the roots are a little bit too long, you can snip off the last bit of them. Okay, we've got our strawberries in. Now what we want to do is, rather than put this heavy wood chip mulch on the top of these, which is going to be hard for them to fight through, I like to use just a nice straw mulch like this. I'll link in the description below so that way you can find this as well. This is light enough to allow air and moisture to get through, light enough for those little strawberry shoots or whatever you call them to come through, but it also is going to keep the sun from baking the soil, and it's going to retain some of the moisture underneath the soil. Strawberries, blackberries, and mulberry all have different watering frequencies and needs. The mulberry and the blackberries want to be watered less frequently than the strawberries. Those need more frequent watering. But I'm stuck here. How am I supposed to do that? Well, there are a couple of ways that I intend to do it. One is I'm going to tap into my drip line that is watering the orchard, and I'm going to run a line over here, and I'm going to do an overhead spray for this mulberry tree as well as for those blackberries. And that way, as I fertilize with a granular fertilizer around those, that overhead spray once a week is going to help to drive some of that feed down into the ground. For my strawberries, which require a more frequent watering, I'm going to be running a line over for my vegetable gardening and running some sort of drip line, but rather than having overhead emitters, I'm going to be using a drip line to do that. And that's that line that has the holes every so often, and that way it's going to weep. Some sort of drip line, whether it be like a soaker hose or an actual drip line, would be fine to be able to water those, so that way you don't get any of that overhead watering, which can help scald the leaves and damage the leaves in some cases. We don't want any rot, we want fruit. The other option you have has to do with the types of emitters that you use, and you can kind of change those out depending on your watering needs. So that's the watering hack. I'm going to put a playlist right here on how to plant different plants, how to plant blueberries and how to plant fruit trees, so that way you can have success in your orchard and garden. Whether you've got one thing to plant in your orchard or 500, until next time, stay busy.